Hi everyone, it's me, your host Niall Ashley. We've got another episode of TMC, the Mainframe community. I'm joined by Josh. Josh, this is obviously a community focused podcast, but we'll start off with introductions so everyone knows who you are before we discuss. So do you want to tell our audience a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Joshua Stiles. I'm a senior solutions architect at 21CS, and I'm responsible for about 4 to 5 different products that we develop with IBM. And
So you have a lot more responsibility than I would ever want.
yeah, exactly. It seems to be growing each
Oh
day.
God, I don't envy you.
But yeah, so I help a lot with the product side, but also I help with mentoring some of our younger guys too, some of our new to Z talent that we've brought in, especially around the Boston area as well.
Yeah.
So I have my hand in a little bit of everything at
Was
21CS.
that working with the interns who recently were there then?
So no, the interns were down in Morehead City, and they did a great job down at that office. But also up in Boston, we had some new support engineers that came up,
Brilliant.
and we taught them basically Z from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
No small feat.
No,
Yeah.
it's if you don't know the platform coming in, it can feel very overwhelming.
Yes, I can vouch for that
Yeah.
personally. Yeah. So, Josh, this, as we discussed, this is a kind of community-focused podcast. You've obviously just mentioned that you've done a lot of work with kind of the new to Z and training people. So, could you tell us maybe what community means to you? Maybe what you embody in community when you're working with these newbies?
Yeah, look, I think the Mainframe platform is awesome, right? Everybody should be involved in.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't awesome.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. When I went to college, I learned a little bit of ZOS and Mainframe. I had a really good mentor, Steve Nelson. Shout out to Steve Nelson. But he got me involved in the whole industry, and it just feels natural to kind of give back and make sure that we continue to bring in the next generation of mainframers, and they also feel comfortable doing it, right?
Absolutely.
It's like the iceberg, right? You're going to know 10% of it, but there's going to be a whole 90% that is just foreign to you at that point.
And sometimes that's okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to burn yourself by trying to learn 100% of it,
Yep. Don't boil the ocean, right?
Yeah. I mean, you sometimes the tip of the iceberg is enough. I mean, we look at Titanic, and they didn't even see the tip, and yet that was all it took. So
yeah, that's all it took. But yeah, really, you're gonna learn a lot through your career. It's gonna be a long career, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do now to make an impact and also feel comfortable in what you learned?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is the newer stuff that you're learning in college and applying it to the platform. Like AI is a big thing right now.
Absolutely.
Linux is a big thing. All those things are stuff that you learn in college on a daily basis.
I think it's really important as well that, a lot of times people have this idea of, forget everything you learned and we're going to teach you from scratch.
Yeah.
But actually there's a lot that's applicable. Whenever I talk to people about Rex, they always say, okay, I've never seen anything like this. I'm like, well, you have. You've seen Python.
Yeah.
And so don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just recognize that a different shaped wheel with different treads is still a wheel.
Yeah.
This is still a high level language, and that is still a high level language. And, yes, your kind of operands and your commands are slightly different, but functionally, they're basically the same nuts and bolts, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a good coder, you should be able to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, that's why we need the next generation to come in and make an impact, because there is a lot of things that make sense to the more seasoned professionals, but it can be different moving forward and changed in a way that makes more sense so that ZOS continues to live on for years and years to come.
Exactly. We've got to foster that kind of, maybe that inquisitive nature of these newbies. We don't want to say to them like, we always want to say that there's no such thing as a stupid question. We want them to ask the questions, because every now and then you have someone say, why do we do that? And you realize, I don't know, and maybe there is a better way. And I think that's a really valid thing to do, to let people sometimes not necessarily make mistakes, but let them challenge, push boundaries,
Don't put them in a box early.
Exactly.
Right? And, a lot of what I do day to day is challenging that status quo to an extent too, right?
Yeah.
Where why are we doing it the way we are now, and how can we do it better in the future? And that's what our young guys need to come in and do too, because they're going to make our products better by infusing a lot of that newer technology that they've already learned.
I mean, I challenge the status quo too, but in a way, my managers wouldn't approve of. So, and I can't say I provide any value in terms of software development. So, guilty as charged. So I guess covering what community means to you. Are there any community groups that you are, maybe currently or previously have been a part of? Maybe you've done, say, volunteering, charity work, anything like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to wrap up the Z side,
Of course,
recently we started to kick off a New to Z chapter in Boston and really making sure that the Boston area, Massachusetts, and New England as a whole has a place to come together and really share ideas. We had about 9 or 10 people in our first meeting, and we actually had 2 BU students that wanted to learn more about mainframes and ZOS. But outside of my, outside of work and in my community, I'm part of some golf leagues and things like that where I spend a lot of my time in hobbies. But
golf is still a community.
Yes, it's a frustrating community, but
expensive community sometimes.
Very expensive community. But I like to be outdoors and really give back to that side. And get away from the office sometimes.
I was about to say, sometimes you need the break from the sitting at a screen and having all these blue light kind of things in your eyes. Exactly. And
well, you go from one frustration to the next frustration, which is trying to figure out, why isn't my golf shot going right next to the hole?
So I guess that's an interesting point then. So is there anything from non-mainframe kind of community groups that you're a part of that you ever translate over to the mainframe community? So I don't know, have you ever had an experience in your kind of golfing, I don't know what to call it, a tenure you've got, but that you maybe have said, oh, this has made me think about the mainframe differently, or maybe the mainframe side that you've transferred to the golfing, maybe you've reinvented the wheel, or you coded something, or
there's a saying that I've heard before, right? And it's not about how good your good shots are in golf, it's about how good your bad shots are. And I think we can translate that back to our everyday life, right?
Yes.
Nothing's going to be perfect.
Exactly.
Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But if you can get the job done in a way that makes sense and really get to a point where you feel comfortable with it, that should be important.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
I like to not tell the young guys, but really show it when I do like the mentoring and stuff like that. You're not going to have good days.
No, exactly.
There's going to be days when you're in the support queue or you're developing something where you're very frustrated.
Or even something's gone wrong at home.
Exactly. Or you're having a bad day or something like that. But how do you take that to the next level and really just bring it all together and have that saying of, your bad shots can always still be good. There's always a positive out of a negative.
It's about range, right? So it's not about having the best possible shots sometimes and like you say, the worst possible sometimes. It's about narrowing that. Even if you narrow it somewhere towards the middle, at least you've got less variation, less deviance. And I mean, I always think of it, it's a little bit of a nerdy reference, but in D&D, you could roll a 1d12 and the maximum you can get is a 12 or a 1. We can roll 2d6s. The max you get is a 12, but at least you get is a 2. And so it's like that. It's like you say, it's you need your worst to be the best it can be, not necessarily the best to be the best it can be.
Exactly. So, and golf is all about it's mental, right?
Yes.
It's all up here most of the time. And so how can you mentally not check out at work as well and just, hey, it's 18 holes. It's going to be a long day out there.
And if you want to get your hole in one and it doesn't quite go right, then that's sorry about that. let me re-ask that. That was helpful. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. If you don't get your hole in one, it's unfortunate, but then you can't let that affect your attempt to get a hole in two. Or, in the same way that
how do you recover?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you recover and make the next shot the best shot that you can?
Yeah. And don't in bowling terms, maybe you're not getting a strike doesn't mean you can't get a split.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't golf, as you can tell, so I'm trying to apply this in ways that I'm like, oh no, I get that now, and maybe for our audience too who aren't golfers. But I'm not. I think I was not bad at hockey, but I can't hit things with sticks that well. So
if you weren't that bad at hockey, it should just translate pretty well, right?
I don't know. It's something about this posture and Anyway,
it's an awkward position.
Yeah, I love mini golf though, so crazy golf.
Okay, we might have to play next time. You're from the UK, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time I'm over there.
Oh yeah. That's a challenge.
We'll have a little challenge. Yeah.
Sorry, little tangent. Yeah. So we talked about maybe what you can transfer each way, and I think that's a really good point. In it's not always technical things. It's a mantra. It's an ethic, right?
Yeah.
So from your kind of your experiences, then, is there anything in the mainframe space that you still see to this day that you would like to change? Maybe it's cultural maybe. So like you say, you still see a lot of companies that are pushing people to be their best and to be at 100%. And you're like, could we refine that, like you said, and actually teach people it's okay to have a bad day, but we need to, our worst days to be better, not our best days to be the best.
I think in the mainframe space, we do a lot very well of like embodying change right now. But I think across the ecosystem, we could do a little bit more to speed up some of that newer technology that we have to infuse into the environment to make sure that that new to Z folks really understand it and can save it. So
Absolutely.
I mean, that would be one area that I would be like, let's continue to work harder towards that, because that's just going to save the whole ecosystem and help the community be stronger at the end of the day.
I think that's a really important point, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, you can build technical knowledge over time. You can't necessarily build a culture if you've got the wrong foundation, right?
Exactly.
I always try to say, like, in theory, not in practice, but in theory, anyone could learn the theory of relativity. Anyone could learn a lot of, Einstein's work or Stephen Hawking's work. Or it's about the effort, the enthusiasm. And I think that's the part where we really need to nail it. Like you say, it's about having the right community, the right culture, the right mindset, ethics, etc. And then you can build the rest. If you've got the wrong foundation, you're not building a house. It's the bottom line, isn't it?
And I think with 21CS, just to talk about the company for a second, we do a really good job of letting our people just be creative and have that foundation to go out there and, make mistakes early on, but also bring it back to a sense that they feel empowered of what they do. And we're making big investments into new to Z and making sure that they feel like they can make an impact every day in all of our products across the portfolio.
Because they can, right?
Because they can do this stuff. They just need to get to that point where they feel comfortable knowing that they can do it.
It's self-belief sometimes. A lot of people feel like, I can't do this. What can I bring to this ecosystem that's been around for decades? Actually, a lot more than you think, but you just have to believe it. And you just have to sometimes just kind of put one step in front of the other and then eventually just repeat that process. And eventually all those steps will add up and you'll have walked miles.
Exactly. And it's always funny when you bring the new to Z guys in and they're like, I had no idea what a mainframe was 2 minutes ago, and you see their eyes just blow out of their head because they're like, this is overwhelming. But as soon as you start to take it down to a very like conceptual standpoint, it's all the same thing.
Of course, it's still a computer. It's just a slightly different one with slightly different terminology.
Exactly.
I think that's such a really important point, because I think sometimes as an industry, maybe we do overcomplicate things and we do try to say, no, we're different. But actually, do we have to be? Like we talked about right at the start with the kind of the code and any high level language, there's so many kind of traits that are just applicable all the way across. Sometimes we're overcomplicating these things, and actually we need to let people say, is it like this, or is the equivalent of this? And actually, instead of going technically no, we go in practice or in theory, or
exactly. How can they relate back in their terms to the point that it still makes sense for the ecosystem?
That's it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's all about, with advocacy and community, it's sometimes about serving different groups. It's not for you, it's for them. And in that case, like you say, we need to support the new to Z people in the way that works for them, not in the way that works necessarily for us. So I think that's a really important
And we need to do a better job of getting college students involved with this stuff early on. Because I feel like if they could at least have some Z knowledge in college and at least understand the platform, you're already like 1 or 2 years ahead of most new to Z people that come out with no experience. So
it's a shame, isn't it, how few educational kind of establishments will have a focus on the mainframe. And you think it's at your own detriment, because actually it's at the students' detriment, because these are a lot of your potential alumni who could get jobs in a potentially amazing industry. And it's
the forgotten industry almost. I mean, I've gone back to my university because they once had a mainframe type program, and we learned ZOS COBOL, but then they stopped it for a while, and now I'm going back trying to get them to redo it and start it back up, because they're missing the employers in the area that want to invest in this type of technology and keep it around. You're almost doing a disservice to your students by not offering that ability to go out there and open up a whole nother industry, right?
I think that's brilliant. So I think that leads us to a really nice kind of opportunity to wrap this up. But would you have maybe a call to arms, like a little request maybe to our audience, if they could think about things differently, if they could do things differently? Is there anything you'd want them to maybe take on board?
I think don't be afraid to embrace change. Like this ecosystem needs to it's changing as we see it. It continues to needs to change to get to where we need to get to. But I mean, don't be afraid. Even the seasoned guys, don't be afraid to change and come up to speed with how some of the new to Z guys are doing things.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's a really important point. And I think, change is inevitable, really. So the earlier you start to get to grips with it and start to accept it, the earlier you're going to start to,
Exactly.
get less stress from it, basically.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time,
Yeah,
Josh. I mean,
thank you.
This has been a fantastic episode, and I'm glad to have you on board. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you on maybe at GS UK in the future.
Yeah, hopefully.